What happens when Hollywood royalty meets reality television royalty, and the collision is so explosive that security has to step in? In just 36 seconds, one comment would unravel an entire interview and end with the most shocking exit in talk show history. Andy Cohen sat across from Meghan Markle in his signature Bravo studio, the same space where countless celebrities had spilled their secrets and survived his pointed questions. But tonight was different. Tonight, the air felt heavier. The cameras rolled, the audience settled in, and what should have been a standard promotional interview was about to become the most uncomfortable hour of television anyone had ever witnessed. So Meghan, let's talk about your new project, Andy began with his characteristic smile, leaning forward in that casual way that made guests feel like they were just having a chat with an old friend. You've been pretty quiet lately. What made you want to step back into the spotlight now? Meghan shifted in her seat, her expression already tightening. Well, Andy, I wouldn't say I've been quiet. I've been selective. There's a difference between being quiet and choosing not to engage with certain lower-tier media. The audience went silent. Andy's eyebrows raised slightly, but his smile never wavered. He was a professional, after all. 20 years in this business had taught him how to handle difficult guests. Lower-tier media, Andy repeated, his tone still friendly, but with just a hint of curiosity. That's interesting. Would you consider this show lower tier? I didn't say that, Meghan replied quickly, too quickly. I'm here, aren't I? But let's be honest, Andy. Not all platforms are created equal. Some of us have to be careful about where we lend our voice and our image. Andy nodded slowly, taking a sip of his drink. The audience could feel the tension building, like watching a pot of water approach its boiling point. Right. So you're saying you're doing me a favor by being here? I'm saying that my time is valuable, Meghan said, crossing her legs and sitting back with an air of superiority that seemed to fill the entire studio. I could be anywhere right now. I could be at a charity gala. I could be meeting with world leaders. I could be spending time with my family. But I chose to be here because I thought you deserved the exclusive. I appreciate that, Andy said, and anyone watching could tell he was choosing his words very carefully. Though I have to say, most guests seem excited to be here, rather than treating it like they're doing community service. The audience gasped. A few nervous laughs scattered through the crowd. Meghan's face flushed red, her jaw tightening in a way that told everyone watching that she was not used to being challenged. Excuse me? Meghan's voice went up an octave. Community service? Are you seriously comparing an interview with me to community service? No. Andy raised his hands in a raised, peaceful gesture, though there was a glint in his eye that suggested he knew exactly what he was doing. You're the one who made it sound like a chore. I'm just trying to understand your perspective here. My perspective, Meghan said, her voice dripping with condescension, is that I am one of the most famous women in the world. Do you understand that? One of the most photographed, most talked about, most influential people on this planet. And you're sitting there acting like I should be grateful to be on your little cable show. Andy's smile finally faltered. Not out of hurt, but out of sheer disbelief. The audience was dead silent now. Every single person leaning forward in their seats, phones out, recording every second of this unfolding disaster. My little cable show, Andy said quietly, and there was something in his voice that made even Meghan pause for half a second. The show that's been on the air for over a decade. The show that's interviewed everyone from Oprah to Michelle Obama to Meryl Streep. The show that every publicist in Hollywood begs to get their clients on. That little cable show? Don't get defensive, Andy, Meghan said, waving her hand dismissively, like she was swatting away a fly. I'm just being honest. You pride yourself on honesty, don't you? Isn't that your whole brand? Asking the tough questions? Well, I'm giving you tough answers. There's a difference between tough answers and just being rude, Andy said. and the audience broke into applause. He didn't smile, didn't acknowledge the clapping, just kept his eyes locked on Meghan. I've interviewed thousands of people, literally thousands, and I've never had anyone sit in that chair and act like they're too good to be here. Meghan laughed, but it was a cold, bitter sound that had no joy in it. Oh, please. You've had plenty of difficult guests. Don't act like I'm the first person to push back on your questions. Pushing back on questions is fine, Andy said, his voice steady and calm, which somehow made his words hit even harder. That's actually great television. But what you're doing right now, this isn't pushing back. This is you trying to make me and my staff and this entire show feel small so you can feel big. I don't need to make anyone feel small, Meghan snapped. I am big. Do you know how many followers I have? Do you know how many magazine covers I've been on? Do you know how much influence I have? Then why are you so insecure? Andy asked, and the question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Meghan's mouth fell open. For a moment, she couldn't speak. The audience held its breath. What did you just say to me? Meghan finally managed, her voice shaking with rage. I asked why you're so insecure, Andy repeated calmly. Because that's what this is, right? All this talk about being famous and influential and too good for certain media. Secure people don't need to constantly remind everyone how important they are. They just are. How dare you, Meghan hissed, leaning forward in her chair. How dare you sit there and psychoanalyze me? You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know the pressure I'm under every single day. You're right, I don't, Andy agreed. But I do know that every other guest who sat in that chair, no matter how famous or successful or under pressure, has managed to have a conversation without acting like they're royalty. The word royalty seemed to trigger something in Meghan. Her entire body went rigid. Don't you dare, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Don't you dare make this about that. About what? Andy asked innocently, though everyone watching knew exactly what he was referencing. You know what? Meghan shot back. You're trying to bait me. You're trying to get me to say something you can use as a soundbite. That's what you do, isn't it? You get people drunk, you ask invasive questions, and then you chop it all up into little viral moments for your social media team. That's literally the format of the show, Andy said with a shrug, which your publicist explained to you when they booked you, which you agreed to, which is why you're here. Maybe I shouldn't be here, Meghan said, and there was a threat in her voice that made the producers in the control room start to panic. Maybe not, Andy said quietly, and that seemed to shock Meghan more than anything else he'd said all night. What? She said. Maybe you're right, Andy continued, his voice still calm, still professional. Maybe this isn't the right fit. Maybe you should be somewhere else, with someone who's going to treat you like you're made of glass and ask you only pre-approved questions and tell you how amazing you are every 5 seconds. That's not what I want, Meghan protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Then what do you want? Andy asked, spreading his hands. Because I genuinely don't understand. You came on this show, a show known for being fun and loose and a little messy. You knew what you were getting into, and now you're sitting here acting like I've personally offended you by... What? Doing my job? Your job is to be respectful, Meghan said. And I have been, Andy countered. I've been nothing but respectful. What I haven't been is impressed, and I think that's what's really bothering you, the audience murmured. This was getting brutal. You are so arrogant, Meghan said, her voice rising. Do you hear yourself? You think everyone should be impressed by you? You think your opinion matters? I never said that, Andy replied evenly, but I also don't go on other people's shows and tell them how much better I am than them. I don't sit in someone else's house and insult the furniture. I have not insulted you, Meghan insisted, though at this point it was clear to everyone watching that she absolutely had. Really? Andy pulled out a small card from his pocket. Because my producers have been keeping track. In the last 15 minutes, you've called this show lower tier, little, questioned its relevance, compared being here to a chore, suggested that you're too famous for it, and implied that I should be more grateful that you showed up. Did I miss anything? Meghan stared at him, her face a mixture of anger and embarrassment. You're twisting my words. I'm literally quoting you, Andy said. You're taking things out of context. The context is that you walked in here with an attitude, and it's gotten worse with every question. Maybe your questions are the problem, Meghan shot back. My first question was about your new project, Andy reminded her. You turned it into a lecture about media tiers. I've been trying to have a normal conversation, and you keep making it weird. I make it weird? Meghan's voice hit a pitch that made several audience members wince. You are the one who called me insecure on national television. After you spent 10 minutes telling me how unimportant my show is, Andy responded. Actions have consequences, Meghan. You can't just say whatever you want and expect everyone to smile and nod. In my world, people do smile and nod, Meghan said, and it was such a revealing statement that even she seemed to realize she'd made a mistake the moment the words left her mouth. Well, this isn't your world, Andy said simply. This is my show. These are my cameras. This is my audience. And in this world, when someone is being rude, I call it out. Meghan stood up abruptly, her microphone pack pulling against the wire. I don't have to sit here and take this. You're absolutely right, Andy said, not standing, not moving, just watching her calmly. The door is right there. No one is forcing you to stay. You would love that, wouldn't you? Meghan said, her voice shaking. You would love for me to storm off so you can play the victim and tell everyone how difficult I was. I don't need to play the victim, Andy said, and I don't need to tell anyone anything. There are cameras recording every second of this. People can make up their own minds about who was difficult. This is ridiculous, Meghan said, reaching for her microphone. I came here in good faith. Did you, though? Andy asked. Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you came here expecting to be worshipped and got upset when that didn't happen. You know nothing about me, Meghan spat. I know that every other guest manages to get through an hour without having a meltdown, Andy replied. That was it. That was the moment. Meghan ripped off her microphone, the pack clattering to the floor. I'm done. I am done with this. I am done with you. Okay, Andy said simply. Okay, Meghan repeated, seemingly shocked that he wasn't trying to stop her. That's all you have to say? Okay? What do you want me to say? Andy asked, genuinely curious. You've made it clear you don't want to be here. So go. I'm not going to beg you to stay. Unbelievable, Meghan muttered, grabbing her purse from beside the chair. Absolutely unbelievable. Do you know who I am? Yeah, Andy said, and for the first time all night, he smiled. Not a friendly smile, not a warm smile, but a smile nonetheless. You're someone who thought they were too famous to fail at a simple talk show interview. How'd that work out for you? The audience gasped. Several people actually stood up. This was beyond anything anyone had expected. Meghan pointed a finger at Andy, her hand shaking with rage. You will regret this. You will regret the way you spoke to me tonight. I doubt it, Andy said calmly. But you're welcome to try to make that happen. I don't need to try, Meghan said. Do you know what kind of power I have? Do you know what one phone call from me could do to your career? And there it was. The threat. The moment that would be replayed over and over again. The moment that showed everyone exactly who was really being unreasonable. Andy didn't flinch. He didn't look scared. He just looked tired. Meghan, he said quietly, if you have to threaten someone's career to win an argument, you've already lost. I haven't lost anything, Meghan said, but her voice cracked slightly. Then why are you so angry? Andy asked. Meghan didn't answer. She couldn't answer. because the truth was written all over her face. She was angry because she wasn't getting her way. She was angry because someone had finally told her no. She was angry because in this room, in this moment, her fame and her titles and her connections meant nothing. "I want every tape of this destroyed," Meghan demanded, looking around at the cameras. "I want every second erased." "That's not how television works," Andy said. "I don't care how it works," Meghan shot back. "I will sue you. I will sue this network. I will sue everyone in this building if one frame of this interview airs." "Sue away," Andy said with a shrug. "My lawyers are excellent." "You think this is funny?" Meghan asked. "I think it's sad," Andy said honestly. "I think it's sad that you're so caught up in your own importance that you can't see how you're behaving. I think it's sad that you came here with a chance to be charming and fun and real, and instead you chose to be this." "This," Meghan repeated. "What is this exactly?" "Difficult," Andy said. "Entitled. Mean. Take your pick." Meghan's face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. Shock, anger, hurt, more anger, and finally, something that looked almost like embarrassment. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by cold fury. "I have never been so disrespected in my entire life," she said. "Really?" Andy raised an eyebrow. "Never? Not once? In your entire life, no one has ever disagreed with you or called you out or told you that you were wrong?" "Not like this," Meghan said. "Maybe they should have," Andy replied. "Maybe if someone had done this sooner, you wouldn't be standing here right now, making threats and throwing tantrums like a child who didn't get the toy they wanted." "How dare you call me a child?" Meghan said. "Then stop acting like one," Andy said simply. The two of them stared at each other for a long moment. The studio was so quiet you could hear the cameras humming. The audience didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. This was history. This was the kind of moment people would talk about for years. "I'm leaving," Meghan finally said. "Good luck with that," Andy said. "What is that supposed to mean?" Meghan asked suspiciously. "It means good luck," Andy said innocently. "With leaving, with your new project, with whatever you do next. I genuinely wish you well, even though you've spent the last 20 minutes being terrible." "I have not been terrible," Meghan protested weakly. "Meghan," Andy said gently, "you threatened my career because I wouldn't let you be rude without consequences. That's pretty terrible." Meghan opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. For the first time all night, she seemed at a loss for words. "You know what your problem is," she finally said, and Andy actually laughed. "Oh, I'm sure you're about to tell me," he said. "Your problem is that you think you're special," Meghan continued. "You think that because you have a talk show and some famous friends, that makes you important. But you're not important. You're just a man with a camera asking nosy questions." "And yet here you are," Andy pointed out, "on my show, answering my nosy questions. Or, well, not answering them. Mostly just insulting me." "Because you insulted me first," Meghan said. "When?" Andy asked. "Seriously, when? Point to the exact moment when I insulted you before you started insulting me." Meghan couldn't. She stood there, her mouth working, trying to find the words, but they wouldn't come. Because he was right. He hadn't insulted her. He'd asked normal questions, and she'd responded with attitude, and when he'd pushed back, she'd escalated. "This interview is over," Meghan declared. "Yeah, you said that already," Andy noted. "I mean it this time," Meghan said. "You meant it last time too," Andy replied. "Why are you making this so difficult?" Meghan asked, and there was a note of genuine confusion in her voice that would have been funny if the whole situation wasn't so uncomfortable. "I'm not making anything difficult," Andy said. "You're the one who can't seem to actually leave. You keep saying you're going, but you're still here. It's like you want me to beg you to stay or apologize or something." "I don't want anything from you," Meghan said. "Then go," Andy said, gesturing to the door again. Meghan looked at the door, then back at Andy, then at the audience, then at the cameras. You could see her brain working, trying to figure out how to leave in a way that didn't make her look bad, but there was no way. She'd already made herself look bad. The only question now was how much worse it could get. "Fine," she said finally. "Fine. I'm going. And when people ask me about this, and they will ask me about this, I'm going to tell them exactly how unprofessional you were." "Okay," Andy said. "Okay," Meghan repeated again, still seemingly baffled by his calm responses. "What do you want me to say, Meghan?" Andy asked. "Do you want me to argue with you? Do you want me to fight? Because I'm not going to do that. You can tell people whatever you want. You can say I was unprofessional. You can say I was rude. You can say whatever makes you feel better about how this went. But everyone who watches this is going to see what really happened." "And what really happened?" Meghan challenged. "You came on my show with an attitude," Andy said calmly. "You insulted me and my work repeatedly. I called you out on it. You couldn't handle being called out. And now you're leaving in a huff while trying to make it seem like it's my fault." "That is not what happened," Meghan said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Then what did happen?" Andy asked. Meghan didn't answer. She just stood there, her purse clutched to her chest, looking around the studio like she was waiting for someone to save her. But no one was coming. Her publicist was probably having a panic attack in the green room. The producers were frozen in the control booth. The audience was just watching, witnessing the complete meltdown of someone who had walked in thinking they were untouchable. "You're a bully," Meghan said finally quietly. "No," Andy said, and his voice was firm but not unkind. "I'm someone who doesn't let people walk all over me. There's a difference." "You embarrassed me," Meghan said, and for a second, just a second, she sounded almost vulnerable. "You embarrassed yourself," Andy replied gently. "I just didn't pretend it wasn't happening." Meghan's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back furiously. "I hope you're happy." "I'm not happy," Andy said honestly. "This isn't fun for me. I don't enjoy conflict. I wanted to have a good interview. I wanted you to relax and be yourself and have a good time, but you made that impossible." "By being myself?" Meghan asked bitterly. "By being defensive and superior and rude," Andy clarified. "If that's really yourself, then yeah, I guess you were being yourself. But I don't think it is. I think you're scared, and you're protecting yourself, and you're lashing out, because that feels safer than being vulnerable." "You don't know me," Meghan whispered. "No, I don't," Andy agreed. "But I've done this long enough to recognize someone who's hurting. And I'm sorry you're hurting. I am. But that doesn't give you the right to hurt other people." Meghan stared at him for a long moment, and something in her expression shifted. For just a second, the walls came down, and you could see the real person underneath all the bravado and attitude. And that person looked exhausted. But then the walls went back up, faster than they'd come down, and she straightened her spine and lifted her chin. "Goodbye, Andy," she said coldly. "Goodbye, Meghan," Andy replied. And then she walked. Not ran, not stormed, but walked with as much dignity as she could muster across the studio floor, past the frozen audience, past the cameras that captured every step, every moment, every second of her exit. The studio door closed behind her with a soft click that somehow sounded louder than any slam could have. Andy sat there for a moment, staring at the empty chair across from him. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or sit in stunned silence. They chose silence. Finally, Andy looked at the camera and gave a small, tired smile. "Well," he said, "that happened." And that was it. 36 seconds from first insult to final exit. 36 seconds that would define how people saw this entire interview. 36 seconds that would be replayed and analyzed and discussed for months to come. The cameras kept rolling, capturing Andy's face as he processed what had just occurred. He looked exhausted, but also relieved, like someone who just survived something they never wanted to go through again. In the control room, producers scrambled to figure out what to do next. In the green room, publicists made frantic phone calls. In the audience, people slowly pulled out their phones, already composing texts and posts about what they'd just witnessed. But on that stage, in that moment, it was just Andy Cohen sitting alone in his chair. The empty seat across from him, a testament to what happens when someone's ego becomes too big to fit through a simple conversation. He picked up his drink, took a long sip, and looked back at the camera. "Should we take a break?" he asked his producers. And somewhere in the building, Meghan Markle was probably already crafting her version of events, preparing her statements, calling her lawyers. But none of that mattered in this moment. In this moment, all that mattered was what had just played out on live television. A clash between two people from two different worlds who discovered they had absolutely nothing in common except for the cameras pointed at them and the audience watching it all unfold. Andy had remained calm, professional, refusing to be walked over while also refusing to be cruel. He'd set boundaries, called out bad behavior, and maintained his dignity even when someone tried to take it from him. And Meghan had shown everyone exactly what happens when someone who's used to being catered to meets someone who won't play that game. The studio lights seemed brighter now, harsher, illuminating every corner of the space where this disaster had unfolded. The audience finally started to move, whispering to each other, checking their phones, making sure they'd actually witnessed what they thought they'd witnessed. "We're clear," a producer called out, and Andy visibly relaxed, slumping back in his chair. "That was insane," someone from the audience called out, and Andy let out a surprised laugh. "Yeah," he agreed. "Yeah, that was pretty insane." But even as he laughed, even as the tension started to break, everyone in that room knew they'd just been part of something bigger than just a bad interview. They'd witnessed a moment of truth, a moment when all the pretense and politeness that usually governed these interactions had been stripped away, leaving only raw ego and wounded pride. And in the end, only one person had walked away from that moment with their dignity intact. It wasn't the one who left.